Chapter 4, verse 2 says, "In that day the branch of the Lord shall be beautiful and glorious." Who or what is this branch? I think that there is more than one answer. Old Testament prophecies tend to have more than one fulfillment. They will often have an immediate fulfillment, something practical happening within a few generations of the prophet's own lifetime, and then a far future fulfillment. We saw an example of this before when we discussed Isaiah's prophecy in Isaiah 6 that the virgin would be with child. The context there makes clear that there was a virgin who conceived and bore a child in Isaiah's lifetime, but Matthew explicitly quoted this verse in chapter 1 of his book as being fulfilled in the birth of Jesus. And I think we have something similar here. Isaiah, I believe, refers to a day of the Lord, which would come relatively soon, some 150 years after he wrote, with the Babylonian overthrow of Jerusalem. But I also think that he refers to a very distant day of the Lord. Peter wrote in 2 Peter 3:10 that the day of the Lord will come like a thief, and then the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the heavenly bodies will be burned up and dissolved, and the earth and the works that are done on it will be exposed. He clearly referred to a day of the Lord which was yet to come, and which carried with it a calamity greater than that of the fall of Jerusalem. Peter referred to none other than the end of the world, when Jesus would return to set up his eternal kingdom. Now, I do not claim to be any expert on eschatology. I suppose that since it has taken me about 10 years to get through the first half of the Bible, I'll have another 10 years to study before I'll have to be fully knowledgeable of the end of it. But set the specifics of the end of the world aside. For now, the point is that the branch of today's passage seems to refer both to the remnant of Judah after the restoration from Babylon and also to the Messiah at the end of the world. The Messiah is referred to elsewhere in the Old Testament prophetic books as the branch, perhaps with a specific intent to reference this passage. Jeremiah 23:5-6 says, "Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will raise up for David a righteous branch, and he shall reign as king and deal wisely, and shall execute justice and righteousness in the land. In his days Judah will be saved, and Israel will dwell securely. And this is the name by which he will be called. The Lord is our righteousness." This is certainly a reference to the Messianic line, and certainly sounds like a reference to Jesus Christ himself. Jeremiah 33:15 also says, "In those days and at that time I will cause a righteous branch to spring up for David, and he shall execute justice and righteousness in the land." Zechariah 3:8 and 6:12 also have references that are said to be messianic, referring to the branch. In Zechariah 6:12, the prophet says of the high priest Joshua, who is himself taken as a type of Christ, "Behold the man whose name is the branch." My expectation then is that we ought to take the high priest Joshua, who was in office after the restoration from Babylon, as the first fulfillment of this prophecy about the branch, but then Jesus Christ as the final and ultimate fulfillment of the branch. Let's concern ourselves with the more immediate fulfillment, but let us not fail to contemplate the ultimate fulfillment. There would be a remnant after the Babylonian captivity. They would return to their land. They would rebuild, and having been purified, they would be fruitful and glorious in the sight of God, and they would live a holy life, having been recorded as residents of the New Jerusalem. Jehovah would purge the evil from them. He would clean away the filth, and he would lead them with a cloud by day and fire by night, evoking the imagery of Moses when Jehovah led the people out of slavery in Egypt. And in doing so, he would give them shade from the heat and shelter from the storm. Of course, the end times comparisons are obvious. Revelation 21 describes how at the end of the world, God will create a new heaven and a new earth for his people. Much as the exiles in Old Testament times survived exile to Babylon, so Christians will survive the turmoil of the end of the world. As they were returned to their land, so we will live on a new earth. As they were recorded as residents of Jerusalem, so we, the people of God, will be recorded in the Lamb's book of life and will live in the new Jerusalem. As God was metaphorically manifest to the returning exiles in Moses' cloud and fire, so Revelation says that there will be no need for a sun, because God himself will be their light. And as the wicked were purified from Judah in the exile, so the wicked will be removed from the righteous in the final judgment, such that nothing evil will ever enter the eternal kingdom of Jesus Christ. So in today's passage, we have a clear description of wrath against Judah for their sins, and also restoration from the Babylonian exile. But at the same time, we have a foreshadowing of the end of the world and the ushering in of God's eternal kingdom.